This episode of the MJCast is brought to you by Instacart, the best personal shopping and delivery service available to our listeners in the United States and Canada. Whether you're self-isolating during COVID-19, need some last-minute groceries to finish cooking a delicious family dinner, or want to surprise a friend with a delivery, Instacart is a convenient, inexpensive, and reliable option for getting the items you need right away. Give Instacart a try by going to themjcast.com/Instacart and discover the magic of personal shopping.
The following is a presentation from the MJCast, the internet's premier podcast on all things Michael Jackson.
I'm a Black American. I am proud of who I am.
Together, we can make a change in the world. I want to see you!
I like to take sounds and put them under the microscope.
There's a driving bass if you become the bass. Let the music write itself.
I don't sing it if I don't mean it.
Welcome to the MJCast, your source of news, discussion, and interviews on the King of Pop. Hello and welcome to the MJCast. I'm your host, Jamon Bull, and this is a special episode in honor of Michael Jackson, the King of Pop's 62nd birthday. Happy birthday, Michael. Well, we are here with world-renowned dancer, choreographer, and director, Eddie Garcia. Eddie exploded onto the scene at just 16 years old when he was hired to dance in several of Janet Jackson's most iconic music videos. A year later, Michael Jackson handpicked Eddie to join his team, bringing him on to perform in short films such as Smooth Criminal, The Way You Make Me Feel, and Speed Demon. Eddie also spent 5 years traveling the world as a principal dancer for the Bad and Dangerous tours, and appeared on stage for Michael Jackson's Superbowl performance. In addition to working with Michael Jackson, Eddie has collaborated with a wide range of superstars over the years, including Jennifer Lopez and Paula Abdul, and has appeared on stage and screen. He also directs a summer camp for young dancers. Eddie, welcome to the MJCast.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. You know, like we love talking with people that knew Michael Jackson, that worked with Michael Jackson all throughout his career. And I mean, you were a part of Michael's career really at his absolute zenith and peak in the late 80s and early 90s. So how exciting for us that we get to talk to somebody who was there for such incredible tours and videos.
I feel pretty blessed. It truly was an amazing experience. And at a point in my life where, you know, because I had just turned 18, being able to see the world and being able to be a part of something so amazing was just awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
I can't wait to get into some of those stories. So Eddie, where are you Skyping in from today?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Right. And on lockdown right now.
Yes. Yeah, it's been a very interesting experience. You know, I'm a dance teacher, so we've been finding interesting ways to be able to continue to do our art. A lot of Zoom calls.
Yeah.
A lot of Zooming. It really has taught us how special the world is and how important it is to continue to do what we do.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And especially your art form brings so much positivity and expression and escape to people. It's, you could argue, even though you can't physically be there in person, it's important more now than ever.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy because dance is such, the art form is so based on touch. And to not be able to do that with other people, like to physically be able to touch, you're finding other ways to connect and express yourself. You know, I work with kids and trying to keep them positive and trying to keep them understanding that this is just a small time period and we're going to get through this, and just to keep their heads up. We're finding really interesting ways to push through. One of the studios I teach at, we're doing a virtual recital as opposed to a recital in person. The kids and myself, we're going to meet in a park. We're going to keep our social distance. A friend of mine is going to film them moving and dancing, all within a parameter where safety is, you know, taken into consideration. And we're going to create like a little mini movie so that they can show something to their families, just to keep it moving forward, you know, because like I said, this is just a small time frame, for us. But if it's been 4 months, 5 months now. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And I'm a school teacher actually myself, so everything you're
Oh.
saying is really resonating with me. So
Yeah, just trying to keep kids' attention. And we're doing stuff that for them is this is something that is their this is how they express themselves, outside of actually in school and stuff like that. I couldn't even imagine as a teacher trying to keep their interest through a computer is so difficult, because I've encountered it, especially with the younger ones. Their attention span is so short. It's really hard. You'll see them and you're like doing something, and then they'll walk out of the room and you'll be like, "Where'd you go? Where are you?"
Oh, that's my daily life. Yep.
You're like, "Wait, why is your brother in the camera now?"
Oh, exactly. Yes, that's right. Yeah. I got to ask as well, as a dancer, what do you think about, this whole explosion of the new social media platform, TikTok?
Here's my thing with social media. It can be something that is incredibly informing, and you can find some really beautiful things with it, but you can also get caught up so far into it that you lose, I think, a part of your soul. To be a little blunt. I myself, the TikTok dances, I totally understand why they're fun for kids. It gives them something to try to achieve. And then they want to see that people can see that they've learned something, and then they get acceptance for it. But I also see, you can fall down that rabbit hole and get real deep into it where it becomes everything to you, and you're looking for those likes, as opposed to understanding that the art form of dance is meant to move people and express yourself in ways that sometimes maybe verbally you weren't able to. So you do it through, your movement. It's like anything, even like food. There's a plus and a negative to it. If you eat too much, it can be negative, I think social media is like that. If you do it too much, it can become a negative. So I think finding a balance, that's really important. I encourage kids to get off their phones and put their phones down and understand that, there's still, even through a pandemic, there's still a world out there, and there's still ways that you can, like I will go on hikes with my wife, and we'll find places where, we can still be part of nature and be safe, because I think it's important to see the outside and get out of the house.
That is so important right now, that, looking after our mental health. And I agree with everything you're saying. Now, Eddie, what we love to do at the MJCast is when we start interviews, we love zooming way back to people's early lives and how their journey intersected with the King of Pop later on. So would you mind talking to us a little bit about childhood and where you grew up?
So I'm born and raised here in Los Angeles, California. At a very early age, I remember watching a movie, I believe it was with Bob Hope, and I saw him tap dancing. I told my parents that's something I wanted to do because I thought he was really cool. My other choice was to try to be a fire engine, so they really encouraged me to do the Bob Hope thing because they were like, I don't know if you can be a fire engine. I was like, but fire engines are cool, Mom. You're little kids, you don't know. They enrolled me in a tap class with my sister, and then my sister and I tap danced when I was quite young. I was probably, want to say 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. And then I took a little break from that. My dance teacher, she retired. My sister went off to college, and while she was in college, every now and then they would need a little kid to be part of the musical or part of a play. So she would always say, hey, I have a little brother and he likes to do this stuff. So I would get included in. She went to USC, so I got to train with some of the best drama teachers and musical theater people in Los Angeles at a very young age. I was like 10 years old. Through that, I was able to get an agent. I worked quite a bit as a little kid actor from like 10 to 12 and a half, 13 years old. I would say I was about 12 when I did a musical. It was called Superman the Musical, which is a very, obscure musical that some people don't even know exists. And I played the paperboy. And while we were doing that, one of the casts suggested that I take from a certain tap teacher here in Los Angeles. Took me to a dance studio called Dupre's, which was a professional drop-in dance studio here in Los Angeles at the time. walked in, asked them if I could find out about their classes and if someone my age were able to take there. And they said, oh, yeah, we have great classes. And I was like, yeah, I'm really interested in tap. And then they were like, oh, maybe you should try some ballet and jazz. And, you know, being a 12-year-old boy, I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. You know, I was like, yeah, I think I'm just going to stick with the tap. And it was funny, you know, they were like, why don't you check out the ballet class? And I was like, okay, because it was happening, you know, the day was visiting, and went to the back, and there was this really pretty blonde girl teaching the ballet class. And, you know, I was a 12-year-old boy. So I was like, I'll take that class. And, you know, she was so sweet and so awesome and so encouraging. And then they got me basically to take a basic jazz and a basic ballet class. And I remember I'm still friends with my first jazz teacher, Denise Leitner. And she was so encouraging to me and telling me about if I kept practicing and I kept doing the things that she was explaining to me in class, that I could really succeed at this. Through that encouragement, within the first 6 months of dancing at the studio, I decided to audition for the scholarship program. You know, this is way back in the 80s. So, you know, everybody wore crazy, like, dance outfits. So I was like, well, if I'm going to go to this audition, I want them to really see me. So I remember I wore a purple unitard and looked like a Tic Tac.
Nice.
It was frightening and it was amazing at the same time. Now I'd be like, wow, that was cool, but it was so scary. I'm really, really blessed that they saw something in me, you know, because I was still very raw, but they felt that there was enough there that they could take and really help me to find my potential. So I made the scholarship program. I was on the scholarship program for about 2.5 years. Towards the end of it, I was taking the advanced jazz class. It was my teacher, Jackie Slight's class, who I'm still close with. After class, Paula Abdul walked up to me. And at the time, you know, people weren't really familiar with Paula, you know. She walked up and said, hey, my name's Paula, and we'd like to know if you'd be interested in working on a video. And I was like, sure. And she goes, the video's for Janet Jackson, who's Michael Jackson's little sister. And I was like, oh, cool. You know, because at the time too, Janet hadn't really, because we were going to be working on stuff from Control. So she hadn't really, the pop stardom hadn't really hit yet. You know, I came home, I talked to my parents. I said, hey, I got this offer to do this video. We talked to my agent, worked everything out. I don't know if they realized at the time how old I was. I'm not sure. But I got to work with Janet. I worked on What Have You Done For Me Lately, Nasty, and When I Think of You, and did some spot dates with Janet. And I was just 16 years old, and it was an incredible opportunity for me. And through that, I had finished my scholarship program. I had gotten a phone call about an audition, and it was a mystery audition. And I was like, oh, I wonder who it's for. And then I found out who the choreographer was, and I was like, oh, I bet you that's for Michael. I had remembered auditioning for Michael once before. I was like 14 years old. I went to the Captain EO audition, and myself and another young lady had actually booked the job. And Francis Ford Coppola he was kind of on the fence if they were going to use kids or not use kids because of labor laws. So it was one of those things where I got the job, I lost the job, I got the job, I lost the job, I got the job, and then I lost the job. And it was kind of back and forth over a couple of days. So the next time I was going to audition for Michael, I told myself I would get that job no matter what. That would be what I would you know, that was my goal. So flash forward, 17 years old, I worked really, really hard to graduate high school early. Everything was set in place. I went to the audition. The audition fell on the same day as a commercial shoot that I was working on. So I talked to the assistant choreographer and asked if it would be okay for me to go in one of the first couple groups, if that was okay, because I was working on a commercial. And he said, sure thing, which was great. Auditioned for Vincent Patterson, who was working on it. Didn't know at the time it was going to be for Smooth Criminal, but that's what it was going to be for. After I had done the dance, I remember the assistant choreographer came up to me and said, "Hey, they really want you to come back tomorrow." And I was like, "Awesome, cool." I went to my commercial, did that, and came back the next day. And I had never really gotten to talk to Vincent, the first day.
Yeah.
I ran into Vincent, and this was at Debbie Reynolds, which unfortunately is no longer there. There was so much history there. There was so much history in that one room where we were auditioning. And I remember running into Vincent in the hallway, and he goes, "You're Eddie, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, where your heart just stops and you're like, "Oh no, am I not going to be able to do this?" Did they find out I was like 17 or something? Like, I was freaking out. And he goes, "You don't have to audition anymore." He goes, you already got the job." And I was like this, "Really? Cool." And then I remember I went home and I was like, "I got the job. Yeah."
Thank you for giving us that rundown of the lead up to being able to work with Michael. That paints such a good picture now that I can sort of dive into a few of those things. What I want to ask about, though, earlier you said your first big shot in the industry was being able to work with Janet. And even before that, do you have recollections of like how you perceived the Jackson family or Michael or Janet individually as artists before getting to work with them?
It was funny. I had a bunch of friends that worked on the Pepsi commercial when they were just about to go out on the Victory Tour. I went to the Victory Tour with my friends to watch the Victory Tour, and I thought it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. And it put that spark in me at a very young age where I told myself that would be really, really cool to do. I had done a lot of acting as a kid, but even though I enjoyed it, I found greater passion for the dancing part of it. Something in that just really, really connected to my soul a little more.
Put yourself back in the audience at the Victory Tour. What was it about that particular tour that grabbed you? What element of it?
Here I am, this friends with a bunch of the kids in the commercial. I remember we all met, and then we all drove over together, and we were sitting in a really, they gave the kids like awesome tickets, and it was at Dodger Stadium. I remember sitting there with my friends, and they were all getting recognized from the Pepsi commercial. So all these people were asking, and they were kids, all the kids for their autographs and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then I remember when the show opened, you had that creature that walked out, which later on I found out was Nelson Hayes, who toured with us like later. And I was like, "That was you in the costume?" He goes, "Yeah, because no one else would do it." And I was like this, that's hilarious. But just seeing like it connected as a kid, that whole fantasy thing where you see this creature and then you see the sword. And when they came out, they were bigger than life on stage to me, and the energy on stage, it was truly magical to see it from the audience. As a kid, just everything about it, like their costumes it was, like I said, bigger than life, and something that was like a spectacle and not just something that you kind of, sometimes you'll go to a concert and you just listen to the music and it's great, but you're not really being blown away by everything. I was blown away by everything at that concert, every part of it. And Michael's energy was incredible on stage. Like, it was just something I was like, wow, I totally get it. Like, I get it. I get what this is about. Just to have that opportunity later in life, which wasn't a lot later, but it was still later in life, was amazing for me.
That's phenomenal. Awesome. And then, talk to us a bit about those particular Janet experiences as well. Those 3 videos that you got to work on, what were they like, and what was it like to work with Janet?
So the first one I got to do with Janet, it was What Have You Done For Me Lately? And I remember, I believe we filmed it over at A&M Studios. There was like a soundstage back there, which isn't there anymore. I think it belongs to the Muppets. I think that's where they filmed the Muppets. It was for a little while. I'm not sure if that's even there anymore. We were there and we filmed that video for 23 hours straight. So we literally were there for the whole day. And they would be like, if you guys get tired, we have couches and things set up. You can just take a nap. And when we need you, we'll come and get you a little bit before so you're ready to go. And Paula was great to work with. They were just everything about it. I think Janet's energy, again, it was something that I had seen in her brother on stage. You could tell that she was about to hit really big. You could feel it. You could really, really feel it. And to be around that group at that age was an amazing experience. And then when we moved on to Nasty, she had 4 of us that she tended to keep around, because she felt comfortable with us, which was another big, huge blessing for me. So when we did Nasty, we moved outside because they had a bigger budget because she had a hit. So we shot downtown LA on Skid Row, a little scary because we shot from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So it was kind of crazy down there. Like, we had a lot of security. We had 2 12-hour days in a row. So, we finished at 6 a.m. You got home, went to sleep, got up, had it was off. Your breakfast was actually at dinner, and went back on the next day. And then got the phone call again for the 3rd video. And when we did When I Think of You, we got to work with an amazing choreographer, because Paula was still doing all the choreography, but she also brought in Michael Kidd, who had done so many musicals that I had grown up watching. And I was blown away. And then he kind of helped stage things because it was going to be this cool one shot. No one had done anything like that. And, nowadays we've seen it still a lot more now. Again, learning about how to set up, because I would sit back and just kind of listen and watch the director and watch the choreographers and see how they were setting everything up. All of that led up to me being able to understand what it took to be on a set, how I would sit back and kind of watch some of the older dancers who weren't old dancers, but older than me. And their professionalism on set taught me a lot. Through that, she gave me opportunities to do spot dates. So we would do a performance of all 3 songs because I was in the 3 videos. I had the opportunity to perform with her live a few times. I remember we did a New Year's Eve show, and again on a soundstage because we were broadcasting across to different countries. Just before we went on, Stevie Wonder went on. And I remember sitting in the audience with her and the other dancers, and we got a private performance from Stevie Wonder because he wanted to warm up. Yes. He's like, Janet, I just wanted to say hi. Please tell your family I say hello. And he goes, I'm going to practice a little bit and I'm going to sing this song to you. And he started singing to us. And I was like, this is pretty cool. We did a couple of those where we did some performances. And then I remember she told us, hey, we're going to go to New York and perform at the hockey game. And I was like, oh, that's different. And it was at Madison Square Garden. And they pulled this little small stage out and we performed on the ice on a small stage in front of thousands of people in New York. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Right after that, it was crazy too. I got to go to Studio 54, which was mind-blowing. Again, I don't know that everybody knew I was 17 years old, so yeah. I just kind of went along and kind of watched, and I was like, this is pretty cool. I remember seeing the original Voguers there with her, and I was like, what is that? And they're like, oh, it's called voguing. And she invited them up to meet us, and she wanted to meet them, and they were incredibly sweet and really amazing. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And then we came back to Los Angeles and we did the American Music Awards, and that was a huge performance. We got to perform Control, and that was choreographed by Barry Lather, who had been one of the dancers. And he's, to this day, an incredible, amazing human being, just like awesome guy. And to be able to dance with someone who was choreographing, who was kind of like my friend, to see him do it, I was like, wow, someday maybe I'll get to do what he's doing too, Again, just sat back and kind of watched, and back in those days, a lot of artists, it was the artist and the dancers, and there wasn't a whole lot else. There wasn't these huge spectacles that you would see during award shows just because they didn't have the time and the setups to do everything. That didn't happen until I got to start to work with Michael. That's when you started to see that change. And that was it. From there, I flash forward to that Smooth Criminal audition. And that opportunity and the opportunity to, audition for Vincent Patterson, and me knowing who he was and who he was in the videos and the videos that he had worked on, I was like every other person who saw Thriller and was like, that's like the coolest thing I think I've ever seen. I was like, that was incredible. Because I remember I saw Beat It, and one of my teachers was in Beat It. So like I was really thought that was cool because I saw my teacher, Billy Goodson, in Beat It. And I went, wow, and seeing him come back to class and seeing him in the video, I was like, that was so cool. You got to work with Michael Jackson. He goes, yeah, he was really nice. It was neat. And then to have that opportunity to work with Vincent and having Smooth Criminal be the first time to work with Michael, there's nothing like that. Like I can't even explain it. Like to walk into that big video first.
And when we spoke to Vincent, it was amazing to hear him talk about the set of that short film, because it seemed to be a fairly long process of Michael bringing him in and then crafting it and developing it and training everybody up in it. But he explained it as though the set just kept getting bigger and bigger and they kept adding elements to it.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember we rehearsed. I mean, this is just rehearsal, which was experimental movement a lot, structured movement in certain areas and then kind of a, hey, let's play with this idea and let's see where it goes. And then when we actually moved into filming, I mean, we'd spent 2 weeks on that rehearsal element. When we went to film, I'd say the entire job was probably 5.5 to 7 weeks long. Even to this day, you don't see that ever. People just don't spend that much time on something. But Michael understood that he wanted it to be more than just one song. He wanted it to be an experience, something that you could watch and go, whoa, and have it blow your mind. He got that bug, I think, doing Thriller, and how far can we go with this? Like, let's bring back the musicals. That was his goal. Let's bring back that time of Fred Astaire, which is, the person he idolized. Even when we were on the set, we studied Bandwagon from Fred Astaire. Vincent I remember he pulled me out of, we were rehearsing a certain segment, and he goes, Eddie, and there was one of the other dancers, and he goes, I need you guys to come and sit over here. He goes, I need you to watch the sequence. And he goes, this is you. And he showed me one dancer in the sequence. And then he told the other dancer, this is you. Because I want you to study them. You're going to watch it, and then you're going to watch it again, and then you're going to watch it again. And find things that they did that you can bring to what we're doing now. And I was like, cool. So that's what we did. And we sat there, and I was like, oh, okay. So there's a movement I do right at the beginning of the video that I got from watching the other dancer in Bandwagon. I went, I get it. Like, because it gave us the vibe. It told us this is the vibe we're going to go with. Even being on the set, I was a young kid, not always understanding, like, especially in the improv part of things. I kind of just went with it. And now, like, as an adult, I can look back at it and go, oh, now I get what we were doing. But at the time, I was like, just copy everybody. Just do what they're doing. If they make a noise, you make a noise.
Well, I was actually watching the video, I think last night in preparation for this interview. I hadn't watched it in about a couple of months, actually. I watched it again last night, the whole thing from Moonwalker. And the bit that stands out in my head right now as you talk about it is that whole sort of experimental improv element within the video where everybody's just sort of slow-mo and you know the bit I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's right after the crash and you hear the glass, falling.
Yes.
Again, because I heard people moaning and making all these noises and I didn't get it, but it was supposed to be a spiritual experience. It was supposed to be the transformation of these people from the inside out. These people who maybe were going down a dark path, being enlightened and stepping up to do the right thing. But at the time, I had no idea. I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Just like go with it. Like I could feel their energy and it drove me. But to have a real understanding, that took later in my life. I went, oh, I get it.
Well, I love it because I think the dance break that comes directly after that is it just hits so much harder because you've spent like a minute in that sort of eerie zone. And then when the lights come back on and it gets back into the video and the dancing, it just, I don't know, there's just something about it, just having that minute of like, what is this? And then it hits again and it's amazing. I think, you know, when everything's said and done, I think Smooth Criminal, in my opinion, is visually, in terms of dance and choreography, everything, I think it's Michael's visual masterpiece.
What set it apart from Thriller is in Thriller, you know, they were on the street and it was one street. And you sat back and you watched it as if you were seeing this coming at you. In Smooth Criminal, they got into it. You were inside of the club. You were part of it. And you were no longer someone just watching it. You were part of it. And I think that's the thing that resonates in Smooth that's a little different than Thriller. Thriller, you're watching it like you're watching a movie. Smooth, you're actually physically, the camera's moving around like as if you're the eyes seeing these things happen around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about the choreography and the inspirations for the dance in Smooth Criminal. Can you cast your mind back to those rehearsals? Who was choreographing and what were those inspirations?
Going back to, there's a movie with Fred Astaire called Bandwagon, Sid Charisse, and there's a section in that movie. It was the inspiration for that portion of Moonwalker. So the one thing I remember Vincent was like, we're not going to imitate them. You're going to be inspired by them. Take the things that they do, let it inspire you and drive you to do something more.
Yeah.
So like sitting down with back then it was a video cassette, you know, and pushing rewind and watching it and pushing rewind and watching it and getting to be inspired. You know, there was movements. There was like, cause he's like, you guys, I remember when we were rehearsing, underneath our suits, which most people probably don't know, we had a thing for a gun. And then we had these little rubber guns with weight inside the holster underneath our armpit. So that we would be aware that these are the kind of guys that you are. You have a gun holster. That's why you see when you're reaching, you're actually really reaching for a fake gun, but a gun. That kind of realism of understanding that that's there existed, you know, because Michael was like, we got to keep it real. We got to keep it real. And one of the first conversations I remember he asked me, it's right at the beginning of the video where he flips the coin and then he does his, ow, you know that? And he goes, turn to me, you know, because we had a conversation, you know, like a day before just about his sister and stuff. And I remember this particular time he was like, hey, can you feel the music? And I was like, yeah, you know, and he goes, hold on one second. And he called his bodyguard over and he talked to him. And then next thing I know, they're putting these little monitors, I shouldn't say little, these monitors around us, like in a circle. Mm-hmm. And then he did the ow again. And it was like 100 times louder. And like you physically felt it hit your face. And he goes, can you feel it now? And I was like, oh yeah. And I knew there was a sense of humor in that too, that because I know he knew I was going to feel it. Like he was like, oh no, I'm going to let you have it right now. You're going to feel it. But it did change everything. You learned how the sound of the music actually physically hitting your body made you react differently. Crazy. I was like, yeah, that was legit. Yeah,
I mean, you would have worked with a range of artists at this point, especially on music video sets. How hands-on would you say that Michael Jackson was in terms of, you know, getting involved in the choreography and interacting with dancers and crew?
And I know you've seen it. There's pictures of him and Vincent practicing dance steps, practicing that breakdown that you were talking about that, you know, I got to be a part of, in front of a mirror and finding those rhythms and those in-betweens. And so he was very hands-on through that process, and he would sit back and he would watch it. and he would sit there and he would talk to Vincent, and they would watch us and they would talk. That's kind of how you got picked for sections during the things. He would, because I knowing him better now than I did when I first started working with him, he always went for people that had a feel, like something they felt what they were doing. Their energy would explode out of their body. It would like be something that I know in his mind, it would affect the people around them and make those people also start to feel. So that was part of his whole thing, is sit back, watch, and see who strikes you with a feel, like an energy. And those are the people he liked to have around. And that's how he picked the dancers for the Bad Tour. It was a feel. He could tell, like, that person, and that person. It was that quick. Like, it was easy.
I was just going to say, I was reading about you online last night, and I don't know how true this story is, but it was a story that the origins of you being able to work on the Bad Tour came out of conversations that were happening during the Smooth Criminal shoot.
Yes. He would have these random conversations with me, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he knew I had worked with his sister, which was something that, again, I was like kind of blown away by. The fact that he knew my work from working with his sister, because he had seen me in her videos. I would do these spot dates with her, and I'd get to go do stuff. So I think there was a sense of trust that I understood the family and I understood the process of the things. So one day we were on the set, and he was like, "Hey, I have a question for you." And I was like, sure. And he was like, "Hey, would you ever want to like do a tour or anything?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like it'd be fun." But I thought it was like a general question, like, "Hey, someday in your life, at some point, you'll get to do something cool like that with someone." I didn't know he meant him. And then a few months later, it was like three months, I got a phone call from his office, and they're like, "Hey, Mike wants to know if you still want to do the tour." And I was like, and I remember I turned to my parents and I was like, "Hey, can I go on tour with Michael Jackson?" They're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay." Yeah. Yeah. And sure enough, I got a phone call the following day, and they said, "Michael would like you to invite a very small group of male dancers down to this one." It was a small sound studio. Don't tell them what it's for. They're going to come in, and one at a time, they'll be given a song to improv to. And he goes, he would like you to be there just to make sure that they, everyone that's there is people that He wasn't there. Again, this is where I think it's so important, especially for young dancers, to understand, young dancers and just people in general that work in the industry, how you are with people will get you so far, because the better you are with people, it will always come back and it will give you gifts that you don't expect in the weirdest times. So all these dancers that have been really kind to me as a young dancer and always kind of educated me or believed in something I was doing, I invited them all to the audition, because those are the people that were nice to me. So those were the guys that got to get in front of the camera, and they had no idea what it was for. None. I was like, "I can't tell you what it's for." They knew I had been working with him, so I'm guessing they could guess. But they came in one at a time. I would say we probably only had about 45 people total. And he asked them to improv the entire song, and it was on Broadway by George Benson. And they literally just had to improv to that song. When he went to pick the dancers, he sat down, and I remember sitting with him, and he put the tape in, and he hit play and fast forward, and he would be watching, and he would stop the tape, and he goes, "Who's that?" I was like, "Oh, that's Randy Allaire." And she goes, "He's got a lot of fire. I like that." And I was like, "Yeah, he's got a lot of fire. He's really professional. Somebody that, I've worked with a few times, because I worked on Fame with him." And he was like, I really like him. And then he'd hit play and fast forward, and he'd wait and wait and wait. And then he'd stop. And he goes, "Who's that?" I was like, "Oh, that's Lavelle. Lavelle worked with you on Smooth Criminal." He goes, "That's how I know him." I continue to go through the tape out of those guys. He goes, "I'm missing an element. This is kind of what I'm looking for." And then I remembered he kind of gave me kind of a look because he was very conscientious of wanting everyone in the world should be represented on our stage. Every kind of person, every ethnic group, every like crazy hair, whatever, we should be on that stage so that everyone can identify with what they see, which I was like, that's so smart. I remembered meeting Dominic and I was like, hey, I can't tell you what it's for, but if you show up at the sound studio, you're going to be auditioning. It's kind of important. So you want to kind of bring your A game. And he was like, okay. And he came in and Dominic just came and Michael was in another room watching through a glass. And Dominic improv, but he had so much energy. And it was like ridiculous amount of energy. And goes, the first thing Michael was like, I like him. And I was like, okay. And then I remember walking out and I was like, hey, Dominic, can you stay? And he's like, yeah. And and then everybody left, and Dominic stayed and the other dancers showed up. And then that's how Dominic got to meet him. And he's like, I really like your energy. And then we went into rehearsal that day and we started rehearsing. And it was the 4 dancers, Michael, and we were in a room. It's like, it wasn't a very big rehearsal room. And we watched videos of his videos, and we went through sections of dances that he liked. We went through some stuff that he had done with his brothers, and this was the first incarnation of the Bad Tour.
The first leg. The Japan show.
Yes. And it was, this is how we're going to get our feet wet. This is like our way of rehearsing on a big scale so that we can learn about our energies on stage, us as a group of dancers with him, with the band, with the singers. And through that, we're going to find our way to creating the bigger show. And I was like, that's it, like you would do a Broadway show. You usually you start off Broadway, you mess with it, and then you take it to Broadway. And that's kind of what he wanted to do. Let's give him a great show, but this is our learning curve too. The things that work and the things that we could probably do better. And then Vincent came back and tweaked the show. And I believe to this day, it's one of the greatest live shows ever created, between what Vincent and Michael did for the Bad Tour. Because the Bad Tour, it was the energy was so raw and so new that, like, to me, like, I remember it was everything. It was funny when we went to a screening. It was the 25th anniversary, I think, of the show at Wembley. And we all saw it and we were like cracking up at how simple the set was, but how explosive the energy was. And it was something that even to this day still resonates. I know a lot of people really enjoy that show. Like you were saying earlier, he was kind of on this peak. It was like that peak time for him and what his presence was in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you can sort of debate back and forth where Michael's musical artistic peak was, I guess, but I don't think there's too much debate in the fan community that his peak as a live showman would have to be the very late 80s. The Bad Tour, especially the second leg of the Bad Tour, is just where it all came together. Again,
I think it also has to do with, partly because of his age, and it was his first time away from the brothers, like really being on his own. He was always the front man, but really this was his show. It was his chance to show and shine with his talent the way he wanted people to see. In later shows, he always gave incredible shows, but there's something beautiful and something inspiring about it.
Yeah. And at this point, I think I've been lucky enough to speak to at least 5 people or so that worked on that tour, from backup singers and vocal coaches and dancers and all different kinds of people. And everyone I talked to says how exciting it was for Michael and the whole team, because it was Michael's first opportunity to show the world who he was sort of as a live solo artist. And I wanted to know from you in those rehearsals and the dress rehearsals and all of those kind of things, was there that feeling of, we are going to do something really that's never been done before here?
He kept telling us we were doing something that was special. So he kept informing us that that was going to be something that was going to be happening. And I remember running into him later in life, and he always referred back to that tour and how special it was in so many ways, because it was fun. You know, the entire thing was fun. For me, I was young, got to see the world, and got to be next to one of the greatest performers that ever lived at a time, and just to see his magic on stage, to be able to sit on the literally on the side of the stage, and every night just see him give his gift to the audience. And that was like, it was an amazing opportunity, you know. And then not only his gift, but like the awesome musicians that we were working with, and the incredible singers. And you know, I knew the dancers, but the brotherhood that the dancers had still exists. The family environment of the people that were on that tour, in the way we still try to keep in touch. We still try to say hi to each other, you know, even if we're on separate parts of the globe. Just touch base, just, hey, how are you? Hey, how's it going? They took care of me. I was a kid. The crew, the other dancers, the singers, the band members, they all knew I was the young kid, and they wanted to make sure that I kept my head on straight, and that I had, because it's something you have to be concerned about, you know? Touring, it's a job, but it can also, you know, take you down paths that aren't necessarily the best to be traveled, you know, especially when you're young. And I never felt, as the tour progressed, I always felt so safe with them. I always knew they had my back. I remember we traveled, I think we had flown into Ireland, and I think I put my money somewhere I shouldn't have put it, but all my money was stolen. They were like, oh, we're going to go out. And then I was like, I can't go anywhere. You know, my money was stolen. I was really down about it. I felt stupid, you know, because I put it somewhere that I shouldn't have. They're like, just come out and, you know, we'll go get some food and and don't worry about it, you know. I remember I had talked to my sister and my parents, and I was like, just tomorrow I might just need you to send me a little bit until I get my per diem, you know, in a couple weeks, just so that I'm covered. And they were like, oh yeah, no, don't worry about it, you know. And I remember when I came back to the hotel room, I had just walked in, getting ready to go to sleep, and an envelope came under my door. And when I opened it up, all of the dancers, the singers, and the band people had gotten together and got all my money back. They basically all pitched in and gave me my money back.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, this is pretty special. These are really cool people.
Yeah, and I guess that's something that when fans watch a concert, we're watching, you know, a one night of something that actually was like, you know, a good year or more of your life with these people, traveling together, you know, I guess being each other's family while you're away.
It's true, you know, and like I said, I mean, they literally, especially me being young, a lot of times after a concert, you know, you're so wired that you try to go find somewhere to eat. And a lot of times, you know, I would go out with the dancers, and we'd go to a club, not to party, but just to watch dancers and watch people and check out the scene. And literally we would just sit there. There was something magical about being able to see every country and how they express themselves through music, you know. And we wouldn't stay out terribly late. We would just go out and check it out, kind of wind down, and then go home and go to sleep, you know, because it usually would be the third show night we would try to do it, you know, because you want to make sure you get enough rest every night, you know. And then if you could sleep in a little bit more, you could go out and be out for a little while longer. And he really believed at that time too, we would do 3 days on, 4 days off. So it really gave us an opportunity to see the cities we were in, and to see the country and meet the people. And he always encouraged us. He goes, if anybody ever comes up and asks you for an autograph, you make sure you take the time and you give it to them. Don't, you know, just walk away. And I was like, okay, you know. And every single time, all of us, we were all like that. We would always make sure until we were done, you know, we signed things and we were good. And, you know, so from 18 to 20 years old, you know, you change so much. And to be in that environment and be out there, I'm really so thankful that they were the kind of people they were, because they really did help raise me at a very crucial time in my life of learning to be an adult, like really, truly be an adult and be responsible. And I'm indebted to all of them.
So looking back on the Bad World Tour, what would you say stands out in your head as a highlight of that whole time?
Wembley was pretty cool because Princess Diana came. I remember he was going to take Dirty Diana out of the set because he didn't want to insult her. And then I remember that he didn't take it out of the set because she told him it was one of her favorite songs. And I was like, that's amazing. But he was conscientious that he didn't want to do something to do something that wasn't right. But the fact that she said, no, do it. I was like, that's great. And the energy at that show was special. He knew they were there, because they had met. It was pretty outstanding. I remember Italy was pretty crazy. Just the energy of, I want to say it was Rome, was pretty intense. Like it was just a different energy. What I found fascinating is that every city offered something different than every other city. So you would find something that was special about everywhere you were at. And that was the kind of neat thing. We were in one city and I remember it started pouring, like rain was just raining down and the stage was completely wet and we had to stop the show. And we walked to the back. And as we were walking to the back, Michael looked over to his bodyguard and goes, "Get me a mic." And his bodyguard told the sound guy, they ran it over, he got them, and he started talking on the mic and he's like, "How you doing?" And everybody's like, "Ah," in the water's just gushing down. And then he started he beatboxed, he sang little a cappella versions of songs. And I was like going, what is that? 'Cause I was like, what? But he was so aware. I got to keep them engaged because we're not on stage. And then the clouds open. And when we got on stage, the energy exploded. And we had to be careful too, because they were squeegeeing the stage to make sure that we were safe. Having an experience like that to see how quickly he handled that situation was amazing.
And right now my whole body's covered in goosebumps because I've never seen that or heard that. So I got to track that down.
Oh, it was I think it was in Leeds. If something about that resonates in my head, but I'm not totally sure. I just remember it poured it was like we stopped and walked to the back, and we weren't back there for very long, but he was smart enough to get that microphone and talk to the audience and get them pumped and keep them engaged. And he did these little a cappella things. And I can't remember if Greg ended up getting up on the piano, where the keyboards was, because he was, there was enough cover there and did little piano parts with him. For some reason that seems to be coming to mind. So it was just special to that one day, that one night.
Okay. That's the new holy grail of the Michael Jackson fan community. We need to track that down. Okay. So amazing. Thank you for all of those stories. Now, before we shift out of the bad era, I know that there's other things you did during the bad era with Michael, another couple of videos. I think you worked on, was it The Way You Make Me Feel and even Speed Demon?
Yes. And it was funny is that we did all of those before we went on tour. They came out while we were on tour, but we had actually worked on them prior to leaving. The Way You Make Me Feel came about again because Vincent was choreographing and Michael wanted to have a couple of the dancers that were going to be on tour. And then he also wanted to he wanted to have a certain feel to the group. So I was lucky to get picked to do that one. I remember being on the set and the guys that look like gang members were gang members, and that's why they look like gang members. And I remember going, well, wow, okay, they're legit. Oh, that's their parole officer. Hi, nice to meet you, And then I remember because there was the Mexican gang and then the Crips. And the Crips were okay with me because, I was Latin, so they weren't real open to me, but they talked to Lavelle a lot. But the Mexican gang talked open with me because they were like, oh, he's one of our homies. I was like, yeah. It was an interesting experience because, again, it really opened my eyes up to these guys had gone down a path that wasn't healthy. But now they were given this opportunity to be a part of something that I hope changed their outlook and changed something for that 1 or 2 days that we filmed, that gave them something to understand that there was another life outside of being a gang member, and that if they just applied themselves, they could succeed. And, I know that's how I felt, because I know by the end of the day, when the day first started, they were a little more standoffish. By the end of the day, they were opening up about their lives to us and telling us all about themselves. It was pretty incredible to see how music can have that effect on people. Speed Demon was was super fast. Vincent was like, hey, if you're not busy, we need someone to be a reference for something in one of the other videos. If you could come down, it'd be great, because we need a certain energy. And I was like, sure. I didn't know that it was going to be an animated rabbit, and and I didn't know, later on I was going to be Spike, kind of. Like, they explained it to me the day of. They told me what they were doing. They showed me the models, because everything was super secretive, because that was the one other thing, is I learned about how you don't want to give away anything. You don't want to give away the ending of a movie before you see it. So it was the same thing. You don't want to give away what we're doing, even though you know what we're doing. So even if you see other people that are in the band or see other people that dance with us, try to keep it really, really quiet, because it'll make it a bigger surprise. Sure enough, man, I was on the set. I saw him dressed as Spike once, because he had the costume on, and I was like, whoa, he's cool looking. And they're like, and then they showed me the model, like the actual little claymation model. And then they're like, explained how they were going to shoot it, and they explained how I was going to stand in the spot, so Michael had somebody to look at, and then and dance with, and then he danced by himself on one side of the stage, and then I danced by myself on one side of the stage, and then they shot the stage by itself, and then they put Spike into it. And so, and when I watched it, and then I got to see it claymated, and I could pick out the moves that were mine, because he also danced, and they videotaped me dancing by myself, and they videotaped Michael dancing, and they go, we don't want it to look like it's just Michael dancing with Michael. We want it to look like it's Michael-ish, and it's kind of a hybrid of, Spike's not quite the same. He's a little different. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And then to see it, because I remember what I did. So to see some of the things that Spike does, I go, oh, that's my part. Yeah. It's pretty cool. And it's funny, because one of my good friends, his daughter, that's her favorite video. She just absolutely loves, because she thinks the bunny is funny. And then she's like, the bunny's Uncle Eddie, which makes me feel great. I was like, well, kind of.
Oh, that's great. And well, I got a 3-year-old daughter, and so I'm definitely going to be watching that today at some point when we get off this call, because you just made me want to watch it all over again. That's awesome. And I just have another follow-up question about the way you make me feel as well. I want to talk about the prep for that and the rehearsals and the conception, because the way you make me feel is kind of like bad in a way, the bad video also, because it's sort of, especially in the dance breakdown parts of it, Michael's bringing in styles that he really didn't do a whole lot of elsewhere in his career. Like, you can even see really kind of classical ballet elements coming in there. How involved were you with the conception and the prep for that? Talk to me about the vibe there.
Again, it was Vincent and Michael. They explained it to us. They told us, we're not going to see your faces. You're going to be silhouettes. So Vincent and Michael wanted to make sure what you saw in the silhouette was something dynamic and something that looks cool. So it was through that we, again, working in the studio, part of it's us playing, but most of it's Michael and Vincent playing. Yeah. And finding those accents, da da ga, and he would want the to have a lift, because that's the feel there. So like, I see the brilliance in what Vincent did there, because you can feel all of those rhythms and what we're doing. I think that a lot of that's led to what you see in modern dance, and finding those beats and those accents and those things is kind of what they had developed through the videos that they did together.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Oh, that's great. All right, Eddie, let's take our first break to chat about our newest sponsor here at the MJCast, Instacart. If you're like me, you've probably spent a good part of the last 5 months staying at home with family. With COVID-19 still affecting all of our lives, there are times when it's difficult or stressful to get to the store. Or even if you're not worried about leaving the house, I know we've all been in that position when we're in the middle of cooking a meal or visiting with friends and family and realize we'd forgot to buy something. Either way, shopping for groceries is more important than ever these days. With Instacart, shopping has never been easier. It makes personal shopping simple, affordable, and convenient. In most major cities across the US and Canada, you can pick from a wide range of retailers. Do your shopping directly on the Instacart website or app to be sure you get exactly what you want. And once your shopping list is finalized, your Instacart personal shopper will jump into action. If the shopper has questions about your item preferences, you'll get live messages directly on the website and/or by text message. You can keep track of your shopper's progress and have your items delivered in as fast as 2 hours. Plus, Instacart will deliver items beyond groceries. They can also shop for household essentials, office supplies, and even alcohol. When all of your items have been collected and your driver is on their way, you can select contactless delivery for maximum safety. And your groceries will be left at your doorstep. With Instacart, in just a few easy steps, you have all your home shopping available at the click of a button. Now, we wouldn't have a sponsor on the MJCast unless we'd personally tried it and loved it. And unfortunately, I'm not a resident of the US or Canada, so I haven't been able to personally give it a go. But my co-host Elise has and absolutely loves it. I know that as a busy parent, it'd be so useful for me as well. First-time Instacart shoppers can also help support the MJCast. Use our special link at themjcast.com/Instacart. Remember that this service is available to US and Canada residents only, and you'll want to be sure that Instacart is available in your city. Just remember themjcast.com/Instacart. Give it a go. And Instacart, thank you so much for sponsoring the MJCast. Let's get back to it. Well, what an incredible story there. Michael, in the late 80s during the bad era, brilliant. I'm also interested in the era that follows that, the dangerous era. Fans go back and forth all the time around what their favorite tour is, and it's always usually bad or dangerous. Yeah. And do you ever just sit there and pinch yourself that you were a part of both of those tours?
I do. Again, I count my blessings that I was there for the bad tour. And then because of that tour, it opened up so many doors for me here in Los Angeles as a dancer. So I was always working. I remember hearing there was an audition for somebody going on, and I knew who it was for because I'd heard through the grapevine. And then I was like kind of bummed that like we didn't get a phone call. Like I was like, yeah, oh no, maybe he doesn't want us. I was like, well, I'm gonna go to the audition anyways, I knew Kenny Ortega was working on it, so I knew, that's sometimes, artists need a change, but I was like, well, it's not like I don't know the material, so I went to the audition just like everybody else. I don't want to say I had an unfair advantage, but I did. I lived that era for so long that I knew the kind of energy that he wanted to see and the kinds of things that he liked to see on stage and feel on stage. So I was just, I'm going to just bring that. And then hopefully Kenny can see that in me. Fortunately enough, while we were at the audition, and I'm not kidding, it was literally while we were there, I think it was at the callback, Kenny pulled me aside and asked me, he goes, hey, I want to ask you a question real quick. And I was like, sure. And it was while we were there, he says, so Michael's decided he wants to use the same guys. And he goes, but we've had all these wonderful dancers come through, and I wouldn't want to not be fair to them, because they put themselves through so much. But Michael felt comfortable with our group. So Kenny decided to bring one extra person out of all of those auditions, because he goes, you never know, we'll probably need a swing, because if any of you, God forbid, ever get hurt while on stage, we'll have somebody that can step in for a second, and then we can do it that way. And then lo and behold, while we were in rehearsals, Dominic was given an opportunity to do a TV show. So he spoke to Kenny, and he was like, it's something, he spoke to Michael, and they encouraged him to follow his dream. So Dominic stepped out and Jamie King stepped in, and Dominic stayed with us during rehearsals and guided Jamie through stuff to make sure Jamie felt comfortable before he went on to do his TV show, which I thought was incredibly gracious and amazing, and it was, I thought that was like something that, like, again, it showed the kind of family unit we were, from the Bad Tour, that he would think enough of Michael, and he would also think enough of Jamie, and not just be this person that just stepped out, hey, I got a job, peace out. Yeah, and then Jamie brought a new energy. Like, we were like a yin and yang on that tour, because Jamie had become the young guy. So now I wasn't the young guy anymore. I was the next youngest, which was weird. I was like, wait, I'm not the youngest anymore. Because of that, I think that added to my energy and where I felt like I could go with what I was doing. And I remember when we were choosing our looks, because Michael, on the first tour, on Bad Tour, he kind of told us what we were going to kind of look like. And then it evolved, and he allowed us to express ourselves through our look, but he kind of guided us. On the second tour, we had a little more freedom. It was kind of like, we're going to be soldiers, but we want to kind of, you can find your vibe in that. So like, I was like, well, I have like kind of a fencing jacket for this one thing. So then I decided, Jamie and I had the same color hair for a little while, and then it was sometimes hard to tell us apart. So he decided to go blonde, and I decided to grow a goatee. And that way we could differentiate who was who. And he approved, because he totally got it. He goes, I wanted to, again, everyone should feel like an individual, even though we are a unit. And that's how our unit becomes something stronger. Yeah, and then we just developed that with the makeup people and the hair people and even the people designing the costumes. They would show us, but as the tours progress, sometimes things get added in the costumes. It all kind of vibes together. It kind of comes out of what the music is expressing, what the music's guiding, what Michael's feel is going to be like on stage, how you can contribute to that in the way you look, the way you feel, the way you're dancing. They would talk to us about what our pants, like if we were able to move enough, so we really worked really, really hard. I don't know if you remember on the Bad Tour, I had those banana pants.
Yeah.
They were great, but they weren't always functional. I ripped them a couple times during a show. This is a little crazy. So we decided when we got to the Dangerous Tour to make sure that the outfits were always functional. So our pants changed, and we had a lot more ability to move in what we were wearing, which I was so grateful, because then you don't hesitate. You're not afraid to do certain things. When you're wearing something and you're afraid to do something, Michael wasn't happy with that. He would always go, no. If something doesn't work, you just tell them and we'll fix it. Again, working with Michael Bush, who took over with the costume designs and the stuff like that, he would tell us, like, hey, can you move in this? Because if you can't move, it doesn't matter how cool it looks, because it's going to not look good. And then we would work with them. And then again, Michael allowed us to find little things and little personalities. He would wear one glove, I would wear two gloves, and it was certain things like that. Like, it gave you props, to use, because, Michael would throw stuff in the audience. And if we had stuff and we were out there and he wasn't out there, we could throw stuff in the audience. So like, I remember I had a set of gloves that I could always peel off of my hands and throw into the audience, and somebody would be cool with it. And I was like, it was just a fun thing that I learned about showmanship and about having fun with the audience.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So leading up to the Dangerous Tour, the scope of it was the staging was so much more complex, I guess, than the Bad Tour. You had a stage that would literally elevate and go up and down. You had Rocket Man launching off at the end of the show, all of these different things. I mean, when you were getting ready for it, talk to me about the sense of that, of the rehearsals.
It's funny because if you go online, I don't know if you've ever seen things on YouTube that say the Neverland rehearsals.
Yes.
A lot of people think we rehearsed at Neverland, which we did not. We actually rehearsed at Universal Studios in Hollywood. Sorry to burst people's bubbles, but it's true.
I always wondered about that. I was like, really? Michael set up a big stage at Neverland? Okay, well, thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah, he found we were in the biggest soundstage in Los Angeles because it was the only thing that could hold the stage. And especially because the stage, so they couldn't set the stage up fully because it had to be lifted so high because of the double stage. So we had it pretty low to the ground, but it could still go up and down. And then if we had to work on certain things, like he had to do the toaster. Later incarnations, the dancers did the toasters with him. They would set up the toaster. A lot of times, Kenny would find either myself, I think Jamie did a lot because we were kind of about Michael's size at the time. And we would try things, to see what would work. I remember originally during Jam, and you can see it in that rehearsal if you find it on YouTube, we didn't jump from behind the singers like the way we ended up doing during the show. We actually came in all different styles, all different ways. And I swung in from the side like a pirate. And I remember
cool.
it was ridiculous. It was crazy. So I was up in the rafters with this rope. And I remember the first time I went to do it, I was holding the rope a little too low. So when I swung onto the stage, I actually hit the stage.
Oh,
and
wow.
kind of bounced across the stage, and Michael started laughing. And he was like, I think you have to hold the whole rope higher. And I was like this, yeah, I got it.
Oh, that's cool.
But like, yeah, I remember I hit the stage pretty hard, and then you got used to, like, I felt like, Errol Flynn, I was just like swooping in on a rope. But then, he would watch it. He would watch the tape and he goes, we need to do something more dynamic. It needs to be more dynamic. It doesn't have that like wow factor yet. So that's when the trampolines came into play, where we would bounce. And then learning how to use those. Where do you hide? And then when you can hit the trampoline and bounce up and end up on the stage, and land smoothly, which was the hardest part. It was like land and then look, that took a lot of practice. But once you got it, it was cool. Like, it was easy because you had a feel for it. First few times, you hit and then you overshoot or you undershoot and you have to walk up, and then you just started to get a feel for it.
Wow. Okay. I'm learning so much here as a fan that I had no idea about before. So that is awesome. You're in a very unique position because you can compare the Bad Tour to the Dangerous Tour. Was Michael as hands-on, as engaged in the Dangerous Tour as the Bad Tour, or was he sort of leaving that more up to Kenny?
No, he was very engaged. You can see it in again, if you go to that video that I was telling you about, you see him talking. He goes, and this is where I need a light there. And you can hear him directing things that he wanted to see. And Kenny was working with him. Kenny and Michael worked the same way Vincent and Michael worked. It was very much I have an idea. Let's find that middle ground. Let's find something that's magical. Let's find that something that's going to get us to the next place. Mm-hmm. I think Michael was always open to people that were creative, either when he was working with Vincent or when he was working with Kenny. Each of them has a different creative vision, and he always wanted to honor that vision, and try it. It was always about, hey, let's try it. Hey, let's try it. But he also had a very clear idea of things he did want to see or things he wanted to have happen. I think that really helped guide Kenny on the creation of the Dangerous Tour. How are we going to make it different enough from the Bad Tour that it can stand on its own? So that was the challenge. We've done the Bad Tour. Now what can we do to make this one different? There's always going to be something, because Michael always believed in finding something familiar that the fans had seen maybe a different way of showing it, but that they had seen, so that they have a connection to it, and then we can always elaborate on it. I mean, you saw Thriller was much bigger on the Dangerous tour than it was on the Bad tour. On the Bad tour at the time, we thought it was pretty cool that we were dressed up like zombies coming out. The first incarnation of Thriller, we had face makeup that glowed, which wasn't the most comfortable makeup to take on and off, but it was what we had. The second part of the Bad tour, we actually had more of a physical mask. When we got to Dangerous, we actually went in and had our masks made of our faces as a zombie, which was an experience in itself. Like I remember walking into the makeup. I can't remember which makeup studio it was, but they were really famous for doing. I remember there was an alien from the Alien movies inside of the makeup place, and I was like, "Is that Alien?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we did the makeup for that. We did the creature." And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool," And I was like, yeah, I was real into like monster movies. So I was like, whoa, this is wild. And then they explained the process. They were like, well, we're going to put these 2 straws up your nose. It's not going to feel real good. And then we're going to put all this cold stuff around your face. And then you can't move until it hardens. So if you have a problem or get claustrophobic, just give us a thumbs down. We'll be talking. We had little earbuds in. We'll be talking to you. Sometimes people get really, really claustrophobic. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was pretty cool. Mine turned out pretty good. I was really happy with it. It was something I wish I had gotten to keep because I really liked that zombie. It was pretty crazy to think that it was my face, sort of.
Yeah.
I was like, and it was funny too because we got to express ourselves through how our zombie was dressed. So like I wore a trench coat a lot on the Bad tour. So my zombie had a trench coat. It was kind of a way for people to identify us a little bit, even if we were covered, So we did that a lot. It's like I remember I also wanted to put my hair in a ponytail. I had really long zombie hair. So they put my hair in a ponytail, which was amazing, because I was like, oh, cool. So I could see it and then go, oh, that one's me. And then the crazy part too is I got to be the magician on tour a lot. Like I got to do a lot of the magic tricks. I got to do it when I did the Bad tour. And then when it came to the Dangerous tour, they figured I had the experience during the Bad tour. So why not let me do it again? And so that was always a process. I remember meeting Siegfried and Roy and David Copperfield and their teams and learning how to sell the trick and what the trick actually is, how it's done, and learning because that was another thing I was really into was magic. I'd grown up with a friend who was a really amazing kid magician. I just didn't have the patience to practice like they did. But I got to do it on tour, which was really cool for me.
The Dangerous tour, like the Bad tour, evolved as it went on. There's probably more similarities between the first and the second leg of the Dangerous tour than the Bad tour, but by the time you got to the second leg, different songs were being added in, like the song Dangerous, for example, which is just like choreography central for the entire thing. And I suppose that particular song would have been really exciting for you guys to get your hands on for those shows, right?
When Dangerous actually ended up getting added in, I think I was already off of the tour.
Oh, okay.
But I got to perform it the very first time he performed it. I think it was one of my last performances with him, like actual live performances. I got to perform the first time he did it, which was fun for us. Again, we put a lot of practice into that. That was choreographed by Lavelle, Travis Payne, Courtney Miller. I'm trying to think. There was a whole bunch of people that worked on that one.
This is the American Music Awards performance, right?
Yes, I think that was the first time we did it. It was a white background.
Yes.
Yes. And again, an inspiration came from, I think it was a Judy Garland movie. There was an opening sequence that we watched and it was that we took the inspiration from. I really had a lot of fun doing that choreography. It was so hard though. Like it was like, ooh, we're going that far down.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine when they did it, when the dancers had to do that live, it was like for me, Thriller was a challenge because of the masks. Smooth was a challenge because you were constantly, there was movement that was constantly happening because you were telling the story, but there were still breathing moments. Dangerous is very physically driving through the entire song. So it's physically a more difficult thing to do for a whole song, if that makes sense. I remember like in rehearsals, man, it was just like, oh, and I remember they would talk and I was like, hey, I don't know if I can do that part. I was like, I want to do that part, but I don't think my body's made to do that. It was like things you would find, and they would talk, but I was really happy to be a part of the breakdown on that. It's the boom, ka, choo, ka, and it's like, it's a break. It's like the little dance break before he does the ha, 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 and then goes into the chorus. And that part, I remember when we were learning it, it was funny because we learned it to a different song. We learned it to, I'm trying to think of what song it was. But I remember at the time they were playing with rhythms. Michael was always encouraging because if you can't feel it in this song, then maybe if you flip the song and try it to something else and then you bring it back and go back into, get back into what you were doing. I think it was Why You Want to Trip on Me is what we did it to.
Right.
I think that's what we danced to during rehearsals for that breakdown, just the breakdown.
Yeah.
Not for the rest of it. I remember the one performance that I wish I could have been a part of, but I wasn't able to be a part of because it was the same time Michael got hurt, was the Soul Train Awards when they did Remember the Time.
Where he's sitting down. Yes.
Yes. So that would have been the last performance I did with him. But I also hurt my back.
Oh.
The day of the performance. And then found out that Michael hurt his ankle. I think it was his ankle that same day. And I was like, oh, this is just crazy. This is like completely wild. But I remember when we did the Dangerous tour, learning that choreography. And that's another one that was so physically difficult, and on top of it, I think we only performed it live once.
Okay, now I got to pause here because this is very, very interesting because I interviewed recently Kevin Dorsey, who was a backup singer on the tour, and he told me that the song Remember the Time had been performed.
Yes.
And then our listeners of the show said, no, it hasn't. That never got done on the tour. So I'm very interested in this.
One time. So one audience got to see that performance. I think we were in Germany because I think that's where we started. So I think we were in Germany. I'm trying to remember. And the reason I know we only did it once is because how physically grueling it was and how hard it was to get through the whole thing. I had a gold mask of like an Egyptian mask on my face that was real gold. It was gold. And we had these two drapes that came down over the speakers, like on the sides of the stage. They were huge. I think they said Michael Jackson in hieroglyphics. I remember I had these gold plates that went across my chest, and we had these like a black fitted shirt that was really tight, and then my black jeans. And then we had this kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of a skirt in front and back of our jeans. It was very Egyptian looking. And because we're in a gold mask with a little tiny breathing hole, it was so claustrophobic in it. And we were sweating. And to be able to see where you were on stage was so challenging. After the show, he felt it was too physically grueling and vocally grueling on him. Like it became, as much as he loved the song, it was too much, and he wouldn't be able to sustain his performances for a long period of time over a tour if he kept it. Even though it was it started with these like really cool drums. Again, during the Neverland performances, the rehearsals, you see a little bit of us rehearsing it, but for people to be able to really see it just for that one time, I think that would be really special, because seeing us in the outfits and with these gold faces and looking more like a sphinx, you know? I think that was pretty cool. And I know I myself have always been looking for it. Because I know we did it once. I know we did it because I remember being on stage.
And this is the second holy grail moment you've dropped in the show, by the way, that fans haven't really heard of before. But from what I know, there are no photographs of this. There is no video of this online. If this ever came out, it would be an absolute show-stopping blockbuster moment for the fan world because no one's seen it except the people there. And
yeah. Well, and it's funny because there's always this new discovery of footage and things that people find, and I'm like, I have fans will reach out to me and they'll send me pictures, and I'm like, how did you get this picture? I was like, I'm in the picture and I don't have that picture. How'd you get this picture? You know, and so like I know somebody has to have it. It has to be out. You know, and Michael always kept copies of everything. He had everything. It's there. So I'm sure if people petitioned and put feelers out, someone's going to find it.
Okay, that's my new mission, to find that. Well, okay, so looking back on the Dangerous tour, what would you say is, I asked the same question for the Bad tour, but what would you say was your highlight of the Dangerous World Tour?
For me, I think Jam was a lot of fun because it was different than, as far as performing Jam was a lot of fun. I thought that opening was really cool, and because I was really into the song too. So I think I also liked, because if I remember right, we didn't get shot during Smooth Criminal on the Bad tour, but we did get shot on the Dangerous tour. But I'm trying to remember if we got shot at the end of the Bad tour. I can't remember. For some reason, I'm trying to remember back. I think that got added to the Dangerous tour, but I can't remember if we had done it. I can't remember if we did it on the Bad. I don't think we did it on, but we did the Lean on the Dangerous tour, which we didn't do on the Bad tour. Yeah. Which that was, to me, one of the coolest moments when people saw that live for the first time. They were like, what is happening? Like, oh yeah. Except, yeah, like, because I remember like the first time we did that, and I got to be the guinea pig for that process of learning how to make that work.
It sounds like you were the guinea pig for a lot of things, with the big rope swing and
hey, he'll try it. He's young, whatever. Well, like when we had the people that were developing how we could do the Lean live, Kenny, before he wanted to show Michael, he kind of wanted to see, what can we do? How far can we go? Which way can't we go? Can we do this? Can we do that? So it wasn't hard for me to figure out, because I was like, oh, well, yeah, you can go forward and touch your nose. No, you can't go to the side because you'll fall, So you kind of had to find that balance. And then, but the first time we all did it, the first time hearing the reaction, I think was pretty intense, because we went for it, and Michael would always go so far, and it was like you had to keep your eye and just try to like kind of stay with him and try not, don't stay too far upright, because then that's not exciting, but just keep an eye on where he's at and then come up with him. Like it was another way, because Michael was always about feels, and to find the feel of where that distance is of the wow factor. And that was really fun to learn.
The Lean is interesting to me big time, because it's really showing how much ingenuity he had as a performer. Like on the video, I'm assuming you guys use special effects like wires or something like that to do it. But then to make that a reality on stage by literally inventing and patenting the special shoe that would clip into the thing that came out of the stage, that's amazing to me.
It was crazy because again, I remember they're like, so we're going to try to do this, and this is how we're going to do it. And then the little board, I had a little practice board, And they were like, so you have to do this and you have to slide in this way. And I was like, okay. And then the guy goes, play with it. See what you can do. So, the forward and back was easy. Once you figured it out, Kenny would be like, how far can you go? And I was like, oh, I can touch my nose. Like I can literally put my nose on the ground and come back up. And he goes,
amazing.
It's like, no, you can really go for it. Like you can really go. Then it was like, well, can you go sideways, like in a circle? So we tried that. That didn't work. I fell a lot. And he's like, okay, we're just going to keep it pretty simple. And Michael was like, let's just do it like we did it in the video, just straight forward and back up, and again, it took experience and communication because again, it is an effect and it's a live effect. And back in those days, there had to be somebody underneath the stage that pushed the thing up and pulled the thing down. So it was all about communication. So if they pulled the bolts down before you were ready, you'd be stuck. And that was not fun.
And that happened on the History World Tour in the Munich show at the end of the lean. I don't know what dancer it is. It might be Travis or someone gets caught on it and sort of trips.
Oh, yeah, it's not fun. Luckily, it never happened to me on the Dangerous Tour, but it did happen a couple times. And it wasn't anybody's fault. It's communication. And again, it's sometimes like a half a second off and everything changed. But that's like, you could say that about pyrotechnics. I mean, if you're a half a step too far one way, you could get burned. Like you just have to be aware. And we had great crew guys that were always aware. And that was the whole thing. Like I learned too, always be kind to your crew because they'll have your back. And that's how they were with us. It's like I was friends with the pyro guy. And when they were setting the sparks on our, like the little things to shoot the sparks off in our suits, and he goes, are you afraid of fire? And I was like, no. I was like, go for it. And he goes, yeah. So he's like, I can shoot off extras on yours. I'll put them all over you. Because the only thing is don't put your hands in front of it. And I was like, okay. That happened once. That's not fun. It wouldn't burn you, but you would feel the heat and you would pull away, because again, you're dealing with, it's a spark and there's heat there. But it was one of my favorite parts of the show was that getting shot and like flailing, and then picking a way to be dragged off stage. Again, working with the crew guy, and I was like, hey, will you do me a favor? Will you drag me by my feet so my hands are and he's like, all right. So you come out, some people got dragged by their arms. No, me. I was like, drag my feet. Like I'm out. I'm done.
Oh, that is brilliant. I got to watch this tour again today, I tell you. That is so good. Now, if there ever were problems, like say something went wrong or not to plan, what was Michael like as a boss? Did you ever hear from him or?
Yeah, one time we had a magic trick that didn't go right, and this was on the Bad Tour, and I was young. Frank D'Elia goes, we're going to have a meeting. And he goes, everybody that's involved with the magic trick has to meet Michael's dressing room. This is after the show. And I was like, oh. So we went in there, and Michael never really raised his voice very much, but this is the only time I heard him upset. I understood why he was upset, but it like I was shook up by it. I was really I was scared. Like I thought I was going to lose my job, and I was young. And he wasn't mean. Like it wasn't directed at me. It was just being in a room when you feel an energy, and he was direct. He was like, this never happened on the tour before. These things cannot happen. These people pay good money to come and see our show. This has to be taken care of. And a particular crew member took and decided to try to say that I had made a mistake, which then really shook me because I was like, I did it. Like I didn't make a mistake. It wasn't me, and Michael didn't take his side. He goes, like, let's not put blame on anybody. We have to fix this as a group. And then I remember I walked out of the room and I was shaking. And like I said, Michael and Frank were not disrespectful when they were presenting it. But to feel like someone at the time felt like I didn't understand too at the time, we weren't as easily replaceable as maybe somebody that might be on a crew. So like I think his reaction of trying to say, well, maybe he did something wrong was a way for him to save his job at the time, which at the time I didn't understand. But I remember I went to the stage manager, Benny, and I was like, I don't think I want to do the magic trick. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't think I'm going to do the magic trick anymore. And he's like, and I was like, yeah, it's not really in my job description. It says dancer, not magician. So maybe I'm just going to opt out of it. So he's like, okay, I understand. And he went to some of the other people, and everybody's like, I'm not going to touch that thing. They're like, I don't want anything to do with that. And then Benny came back and he's like, hey, look, nobody wants to touch the magic trick, and you're the only one that's been doing. I said, and then I was honest with him, and I was like, hey, Benny, look, I know I didn't pull the wrong rope, but I don't ever want to be in a room and be told by somebody that I've done something that I really feel I didn't. Because my first reaction was, let's go watch the video. Let's go see if I pulled the wrong rope, because I was really confident that I had. My lengthy story gets to, I found out later there was a faulty hook. So it was something way out of so basically it wouldn't have mattered if I had pulled the wrong rope. The hook was faulty. So they had to replace the hook. So from that point on, I was in charge of all the magic tricks, but I was never going to be called into a meeting concerning any of them, and they gave me that promise. And Michael's manager, who was a friend of mine on tour, I would babysit for Frank so that him and his wife could go out and have an evening, and just so that they could just, enjoy some time, because Frank worked so hard. Frank D'Elia worked so hard on tour. Frank came up to me and goes, hey, look, because he knew I was like shook up by it. And he goes, you didn't do anything wrong. This is just part of what we do. As a group, you have to know that when things go wrong, we all have to step up. And we, meaning all of us, he goes, basically telling me, sorry, I had to be part of it, but it's because I'm part of the team. And as a team, we have to hear that even when it's uncomfortable. And so I learned, it was, I think, one of my, this is how you grow up days, but I was scared. I thought I was going to get fired and I remember different band members, they're like, you're not going to get fired. I was like, but I am, they're going to fire me. You're going to fire me. They're like, you're not going to get fired. No one's going to let that happen. I was like, but, and they didn't. And like I said, when we got to the Dangerous tour, he entrusted me with the magic trick there, because he knew I would take the time and the care to really understand how it worked. And he knew that I would always perform it the same way, like I wouldn't drift away from that. In the end, I felt very honored to be able to do that. At the beginning, it was a little frightening, but I remember the conversation on the Dangerous tour the first day. They're like, so we got this magic trick. And I was like, oh no. And they're like, come on. I was like, okay.
Here we go.
Yeah, okay.
Some of the crew and people I've spoken to on these tours have talked about, obviously, it being an amazing experience, that they'd never trade for anything. But some of them will also say that it was a little bit draining behind the scenes, some of the drama that would go on between people. Did you experience any of that, or did you just stay out of it and do your job?
I don't know if that happened maybe on later tours. I never experienced it on as far as when I was there. I know that Dangerous tour was a little more, a little harder because our scheduling was a little harder. It wasn't like on the Bad tour, 3 days on, 4 days off, 3 days on, 4 days off. You always had time to kind of recoup, because Michael wanted to do that for his voice, but it was also a way for your body to recoup, during the week. So I found that the Bad tour, I think that's why our energy was so fresh and so strong through the whole tour. Dangerous was physically more demanding, I think, in a lot of ways, because of the touring schedule and that also the songs and the different things that we were doing, because we were doing a lot of stuff that you saw on the Bad tour, but then there was added stuff, or there new things, bigger dancers, bigger performances. So I think that became draining. And, like I said, like any family, I'm sure there were squabbles here and there, but I didn't experience them. I always felt like everybody was always very respectful, and conscientious of not ever accusing people of stuff and not going after people. We always worked together to make sure that whatever we were doing as a group, it highlighted whoever needed to be highlighted at the time, especially Michael. You know, you learned about humbling yourself and your performance and making sure that you never did anything that was distracting or trying to grandstand unless you were asked to. And then that's a different thing. If you were asked to, then you go for it. You knock it out. You give it all. If you're not, you find your moments, find where they're at, because you're not the star. You're the person that's supposed to be backing them up and having their back and lifting them up. On the second tour, I think I realized that much more than on the first tour. On the first tour, you know, it was energy for me. On the second tour, it was being conscientious of finding moments, working with the flow of the show, finding how to sustain your performance, because we would do 2 shows and then we would get in a bus and go and then we'd have like a day off and then we'd have 2 shows, you know, so our schedule was much more intense. So you had to be really smart about how you did stuff.
The legacy of the Bad Tour is one of triumph and just an incredible show. But unfortunately, the Dangerous Tour, as amazing as it was, ended kind of in tragedy with the show having to stop. And it got cancelled, you know, partway through it because of some issues Michael was facing in terms of dependency and all of those kind of things, and then some problems that were happening back in the States with allegations. Did you sense on the tour any issues with Michael sort of his well-being as compared to the Bad Tour?
No, not my time there. I did all that. A lot of that came after me. You know, so I count my blessings. Like I really did have the best experience with him. It was both tours were the best experiences for me with him. You know, I enjoyed, because a lot of those things came later. I'm saddened to see that was something that happened to him because of the person that I knew. I always felt like when I ran into him years later, I remember I was at a Virgin Mega store looking at video games upstairs, and I saw his driver walk in. I was like, oh, that's weird. That guy looks like Michael's driver. And then all of a sudden, there's Michael. And I was like, whoa. And I didn't want to go up to him and bother him. You know, I hadn't seen him in probably 4 years, 5 years. And so I was like, oh, you know, he's probably going to get bothered. And I don't want to do that, even though I'm sure he would be fine with me saying hi. And he came up to me and he goes, hi. And I was like, hey. And he goes, you didn't think I recognized you, huh? And I was like, oh, you know, and he's like, yeah. And he goes, and he pulled his glasses off and he started talking to me. And he goes, you know, he was asking me about my family. I congratulated him on his family. We were just 2 people talking, and it was something that I felt really blessed to have that connection. And the fact, you know, he was kind. He asked me about my family. He remembered, you know, he's like, you know, just checking. And then that's when, remember I told you he was referring to What a Special Time. That's what he was talking about. He talked about it to me then. He goes, remember when we first started, what a special time that was? It was really incredible, and how lucky we were to be, you know, to have that part of our lives. And I was like, and here we're having a conversation at a Virgin Megastore, which was funny too, because I could see employees kind of just randomly showing up on the floor and pretending like they were stocking things just because he was in the store. And I was like, whoa, there was like one person up here and now there's like 25. That's weird. But he gave me a hug and he said bye. And then I remember I got to speak to him one more time before they had gone into rehearsals for This Is It. It was before they actually even had the auditions for would have been the next group of dancers. And again, he was just so sweet on the phone, and he was so nice to me. And he always started out, how are you? How's your family? How's everybody doing? You know, is everybody good? All right, what's going on in your life? It was always like he was asking me stuff about myself. You know, and I found that it told me a lot about him as a person, because he didn't have to do that.
So I'm very curious about that. So what was the nature of your phone call with him before This Is It? Was it just like a catch-up call? Or?
It was funny because Lavelle had been working with him on and off over the years, just different things and different projects and different ideas. And there was one day I was talking to Lavelle just randomly, and he goes, "Hold on one sec." And then Michael got on the phone. I was like, "Wait, what? What?" and, uh, and then and then he got off the phone and he goes, "Yeah, he had to run." He goes, "But he just wanted to say hi. I told him I was talking to you." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, that's very sweet.
Yeah, so I'm so grateful to Lavelle for that, because that was to have that conversation and to it be one of my last and it was so sweet. And so it was the voice of the person I went on tour with, and hearing him. And he was very excited about what was coming up, because he told me, he's like, "I'm really excited." He was explaining, it was going to be his last hurrah as far as he knew, this is what he wanted. He wanted to do one big thing, and just, again, it just saddens me that he didn't get to fully see it all the way through. I know the dancers that worked with him were deeply affected by that time. And, and it's funny because when you've worked with Mike and you've been part of the people that have been on tour, it's a very small group of people that have ever had that opportunity. So we all feel connected. And I think that's kind of cool. In our dance community, there's only a few of us that ever did it. To be part of that is really special. I talked to a lot of them, and I feel that connection is very important, and the legacy that was, that I'm a part of. I still, I teach Thriller every Halloween just because I think it's important for people to do that piece of choreography and to understand how special it is. I teach Smooth Criminal every now and then. That's a little harder to teach though, because it's a little, it's a different kind of difficulty. But those opportunities and those things are something that's really special, and I'm very, 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 very grateful for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, when we wrap up later on, I've got a few little questions in there for you about where people can find you and connect with you and do those kind of classes. So, Eddie, I do have a question for you here on a bit of a sensitive topic. Unfortunately, in modern times, we know that Michael's reputation, unfortunately, has become intertwined for some people in the general public as, an alleged abuser, which is terrible. And as a school teacher, I'm constantly getting into conversations with kids where they will say, "Oh, is it true that he did this?" and all of that kind of thing. And I guess it must be interesting for you looking at it, because the accuser from the last few years is a prominent individual within the dance world and the dance community, Wade Robson. I'd love for you to talk to me about your views on that and I guess the real Michael that you knew.
I always go by the person that I experience, and I can't speak on Wade's experience because that's whatever his journey is for himself and what he's decided. Michael was always kind to me, kind to my family, and gave me opportunities to do things that I would never have been able to do. Those are the experiences I share with people. I've also, like in my experience, I don't talk bad about people. I don't get involved in doing, I feel it can be a double-edged sword. It can really lead to some nasty things that I don't think Michael himself would be a part of, you know what I mean? So I don't get involved, as far as opinions of what people, how I feel about, this or that. I don't go down that road with it because I look at the experiences that I have with people and I make my judgments from that. And I've always approached it that way. And when I share stories, I always share the stories that I experience and the joy I felt, because I feel those will be the things that I can share with fans that are truthful and that are real, so like that, I mean, that's my basic answer. I don't, I'm not trying to tippy-toe around it. I was always taught, I don't get involved. I don't go into this or that because, people have very strong opinions both ways. And because I'm in an industry where people know everyone knows everyone, I've always chosen to be, look, I'm going to come in this from a positive place, and I'm going to share positive viewpoints about a positive part of my life and the people I got to work with and how they treated me. Michael being one of them, Janet being the other. So I'm always grateful and gracious about how I'm going to present them to people, because that's the experience I had.
Yeah. And I really value and appreciate that honesty. That's great. Thank you. Let's take another break, but this time to talk about the MJCast's official shop. Elise and I and the whole MJCast team count our blessings every day that we have such a loyal audience of Michael Jackson and Jackson family fans. And let me tell you, if you are somebody who is proud of the MJCast and Michael Jackson and want to really promote our podcast, then you can absolutely do that through heading over to themjcast.com/shop. It's our official merch store, and we have got lots of great designs there. For example, we've currently got 5 great designs on the store. Our official sunset logo, which is by far our most popular design. All 9 of our seasonal logos in a design called 9 Logos. And then 3 great text-based artworks based on those cool Helvetica list style designs that you see around the place. And we've got ones that list all the Jackson brothers' names, all the character names in Captain EO, and then all of Michael Jackson's adult solo album names as well. And you can apply these designs to a range of products, including t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, travel mugs for coffee, phone cases, prints and artworks, tote bags, all kinds of different things. There's there's masks now, there's pins, there's so many things. And we get such a kick every time we get an email come through saying another one of our listeners has bought some of our merch, because we know that not only are they going to get a great product, but they're going to be out and about just, repping Michael Jackson as they go for a walk or wherever they go. Now, the company that actually supplies all of our merch is called Redbubble, and they offer amazing service. I'll give you an example. So I bought a t-shirt from them with one of our designs on it, and I accidentally bought the wrong style. I like slim fit t-shirts that have thinner material, and I accidentally bought the classic one. And I emailed them, and then right away they sent me a new one out. They didn't ask for the old one back. They didn't charge me for another shirt. They just sent me a new one and said, keep the old one as well. So that's how great these guys are. Now, all of the proceeds go to 3 different areas. They go to our show running costs, new equipment so our podcast can sound even better in the future, and then charity donations. We love giving back to causes that we know Michael Jackson would have believed in for sure. Promote the MJCast and Michael Jackson all at the same time, and support what we do by heading over to themjcast.com/shop. That's themjcast.com/shop. And don't forget to send us photos as well of you with some of our cool MJCast merch, and we'll definitely share those out on our social media pages as well. Do consider going to themjcast.com/shop and grabbing something to support what we do at the MJCast. All right, let's get back to Eddie. Alrighty, so I want to wrap up the Dangerous era because I know that you worked on some other little award show performances and different things throughout it. One of the performances that you did really is one of the most quintessential and well-known of Michael's whole career, which is the Super Bowl. Jesus, the Super Bowl. Tell us about that.
It was crazy. I remember where they were like, "Hey, we're gonna do Super Bowl." I was like, "We're what?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're doing the halftime show." I was like, "Oh, all right, cool." And it was funny because Vincent came back to do that. So Vincent worked on the Super Bowl halftime. I don't know if Kenny was working on something, but I know Vincent did the halftime. So it's the only time you'll ever see dancers with Michael during Billie Jean, which is pretty funny because I had forgotten that until I'd seen it again, later in life. I went, oh yeah, we danced during Billie Jean. That's weird. Because I didn't remember that. You remember I remember we danced on Jam. I remember we danced Heal the World, and I remember all those things, but I was always so used to seeing him do Billie Jean by himself that it was interesting because there was nowhere for us to go. Once you're on that stage, because it was quite small, for the time. The shows have gotten so much more elaborate, but for the time it was a big deal. Like the work that went into them explaining how the stage was going to come together. We had a certain amount of time. They had to bring the stage from 4 different sides, smack it together, get the band on. We had to get in place. We had all this before we come back from commercial, da-da-da. And then once we were live, it was all the way through. Don't stop. So it was fun. I remember like being on the field and seeing, I think it was Dallas and the Bills. And I remember thinking, I was like, wow, Dallas Cowboys are huge. And then I saw the Buffalo Bills. I'm like, they're big too, but the Dallas Cowboys are huge. I was like, those are some big, and that's when Dallas was like, had they were huge then. I think it was Troy Aikman and that group. But I remember afterwards, like, it's interesting to me now reflecting back that it's considered to be like one of the greatest ever for the halftime shows. And I think it's because it wasn't the first, but it was the first of that kind, of taking it to that level, of bringing it to a place that hadn't been seen like that before. And that's inspired everyone to this day. People still try to, there's certain performances during the halftime show that people will go, oh, that guy, or that, like, I remember Prince, during the halftime. Yeah. In the rain. What? You're doing Purple Rain in the rain. I was like you look at that and you go, wow, okay. To me, to be a part of something that was somewhat historic for TV was pretty cool. Rehearsal process, I don't remember, it wasn't too bad for us. It was more about how we have to get on the field, off the field kind of a thing. That was what we had to really work on.
Yeah, and what stands out to me as really special about the Super Bowl performance is the fact that Michael, in a lot of ways, didn't make it about him so much. Like, he so easily could have come out and just done, I don't know, a bunch of mega hits like The Way You Make Me Feel and all of that kind of thing. But most of that performance is actually the kids on stage and the audience flipping over the placards and Heal the World and the message. He didn't come out there to try and promote mega hits and sell more songs. He came out there to spread the message of peace and coming together. He used that giant viewership to send that message, which I think speaks a lot to his character.
Yeah, and I think it still resonates, especially nowadays. I think there are certain messages that were expressed during 2 of our tours and the Super Bowl halftime that resonate now and are important for us to look, because we should be moving forward and we should be getting better as a world. And sometimes I think we have these missteps and things that happen, but maybe they open our eyes up and we can grow and become better people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool to think, actually, like, what did Michael do in his Super Bowl? Well, his message was anti-racism in black or white and coming together for Heal the World. So very, very good stuff. All right. Before we wrap Dangerous Era real quick, was there any other special performances that you were involved in outside of the tour that come to mind?
I did like doing the Grammys. I thought that was pretty cool. Again, because, to do the Grammys was pretty cool. To do it with him, it was pretty amazing. And it was the first time people heard that bluesy breakdown of The Way You Make Me Feel. Because I remember when they played it for us and he did it, I was like, oh, that's sick. I was like, yeah. I was like, it was just, when he does Man in the Mirror at the end of that, it just goes to a whole nother level. And I was like, oh man, wow. I remember that night, I was like, wow, where did that come from? But it's because it was part of him since the day he was, since he was little. It's like, once you get on that stage, you go out there and you give him 150%. You give him everything. The first conversation I had with him, we were in Tokyo, the first conversation about the show. We were underneath the stage and I was shaking. And he turned to me and he goes, are you nervous? And I was like, yeah. I wasn't going to lie. And he's like, well, no, it's good. He's like, it's good. If he goes, you're nervous because you care. He goes, that's important. He goes, take this moment in because you're never going to feel this moment right here. And he goes, and then go out there and hurt them. And I was like, okay. And it wasn't like hurt them physically. It was like hurt them with like, give them so much that they feel everything you're feeling. And they go, oh yeah, that was out of control. That one conversation changed my life. That understanding how to put me at ease, being inexperienced in this and not faulting me for it, and then wanting to move me forward, Yeah. I thought, and basically building me up before I walked out on stage with one of the most famous people in the world. For him to take that moment to realize that I needed that, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I love hearing that about Michael, because he wasn't just Michael the performer. He was coaching his team through these incredible situations, and he often took on people new to the industry and gave them incredible advice. So I love hearing that. Beautiful. Did you ever get the chance to go to Neverland?
I did not. No. I have friends that got to go, and I was like, no, unfortunately, I never got to go. Saw pictures. I was like, oh, that looks cool. I was like, wow. I did go to the family house, which was pretty cool in itself. Like, I remember going to that. It was funny because when I went to the Jackson house, I expected like this crazy property, and it was a beautiful property, but I expected it to be like biggest thing ever. And it wasn't. It was what you would expect for a family of their size. You'd be like, yeah, you need this many rooms because you got that many like kids, it's like,
yeah.
And I got to do that because Janet had invited me. So I got to go check out the family house, and she showed me around and stuff. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I'd love to go there one day. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I mean, just it's so cool to think like he was living there during the Thriller era, sort of just in the little studio there with his team, crafting these demos that would become the mega hits of, Billie Jean and Wanna Be Starting Something and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like ground zero. Okay, random question. I'm curious how you guys as a group of dancers actually stayed in shape and trained while on tour. Was there a lot of gym work and training going on behind the scenes?
A lot of push-ups.
Yeah.
A lot of push-ups. And I mean, back in the day, I would do push-ups and sit-ups in my hotel. We would be at the stadiums early, and you kind of walk through the show, and then you do we kind of would do a once through the show. But, we were pretty good about eating well and not getting too crazy drinking or doing anything like that. Like we were really healthy. We were really trying to be on our A game because like I didn't drink when I was on tour at all. Like, wasn't something I did. I physically kept active. Just, I put a chair up and try to do it, different push-ups and different things like that. And then doing the show was a workout. Like truly under those lights. Woo! It's like you sweat. You're like, woo. They'd always have to take in our pants because you could lose a lot of weight in a show. Like during one show, you'd lose weight. Like it was crazy. Yeah, and your metabolism was huge.
What was it like trying to keep up with Michael Jackson? Was there a lot of pressure there for the dancers to keep up with him, or was it the other way around with him trying to keep up with you guys?
Oh no, it was us trying to keep up with him. Like he would surprise you all the time. I mean, his energy, like, every now and then, like, I remember sometimes he would grab me and I couldn't believe how strong he was. He'd be like, "Wow!" I'd be like, "Yow, that hurts!" But like he wasn't trying to hurt me, but I was like, "Woo!" So I remember your energy had to keep up with him because he didn't. His way of he's like, "Oh, we can take it easy." He never took it easy. Like he just, I'm going to save my voice. I'm not going to sing everything. And by the end of the song, he's singing full out. You're like, wait, what? So like you didn't mark. You just, you found he would set the tone and how it would work. So like you just found a way your energy, I couldn't keep up with him because we were on stage, but he was on stage the whole time. So I was like, yeah, we're out there, but he is out there the whole time. So
The
we got to
whole
keep
time.
up with him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And looking back on all of your time with Michael, is there like a personal memory you might have of like just a time where you and the dancers or you and him just got to hang out after a show and just chat about things?
Especially on the bad tour, we went to a lot of amusement parks.
Wow.
So I remember we went to Tokyo Disneyland once, and they were really sweet and kind, and we went towards the end of the day, so they kind of shut it down. And to experience that park, it was there was no one there except for us, and it wasn't just the dancers. It was like he took the crew, he took all of us. We had the whole park to ourselves.
Wow.
And that was pretty cool. We went on Space Mountain like 3 times in a row. I was almost going to puke because I was like, yeah, this is fun. Oh, I don't know. Oh, I don't know now. It's like a kid. And I was like, this is crazy. There were experiences like that where we got to go and see certain things that were really special. I remember they had a really cool dinner for us in England. And I remember a night, like he was on a horse in full, like he had shining armor on, riding down while we were eating, writing in front of us. And I was like, what is happening? Like, and there were so many different place settings on I didn't know like what knife was for what. And I was like, I've never seen that fork before. What's that for? Like, I was like, cause it was like, I'd never been to a fancy dinner like that, So it was stuff like that was really cool. I did get a lot of opportunities just to hang out with the dancers. Cause like I said, sometimes you would wind down by trying to go get something to eat afterwards, or like we would go out and people watch, and go to a place and with some of the band members and go watch and hang out. And people were always so gracious to us and would always invite us into, different locations. And it was really awesome. Like, it was fun.
Great. Change of gears. This is a question I ask to any choreographer that we get on the show or any dancer. I also speak to a lot of songwriters, and luckily for songwriters, they get, the privilege, I guess, of being able to copyright their work and, earn money off that in the future as it comes out in different fashions and greatest hits albums, etc. But in the dance world, when you guys are choreographing and coming up with these incredibly new, brilliant ideas that are artistic expressions from your mind, does it get frustrating that you're unable to stamp that with a copyright?
It can be incredibly frustrating. And I know that's happened to quite a few people within the industry, because there are certain things that are very iconic. That's why I always try to give credit where credit's due, because, like I said, Michael Peters, what he did with Michael Jackson was incredible. He, Beat It, Thriller, Vincent Patterson, what he did. So I'm always trying to make sure that people understand where these things came from, because even though I believe they should be monetarily taken care of, and, I know when Broadway was open, there's certain choreographers that were taken care of there. They stepped up at a certain time and made it a point to make sure that when a show was done, their choreography was done. It wasn't changed, and they were credited and they were paid for it. They're trying to get that to happen within our industry, but it is difficult. It is difficult. And it takes an industry wanting to change for changes to happen. So all we can do is continuously remind them what we do as dancers and what we do as choreographers, and let them know that the arts are so important, especially in a time like this. And if you didn't realize it, you realize it now, especially when it's taken away. So when it becomes available again, make sure you put everything in to make sure those people are taken care of, because they take care of you emotionally in so many ways that you don't realize.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Michael Jackson as a dancer in the dance community, what is the perception of Michael amongst your peers, I guess, both then when you were working with him and now?
Groundbreaking, I think. He is the reason that you see pop artists have dancers. It's not really because of anybody else. It's because of him. He was the original person to have dancers behind him, dancing and Beat It. And then he continued to do that in Thriller, and then it evolved, and then it evolved again. And now you see, whenever you see an artist and you see a group of dancers behind them, it's because of Michael. It's because of what he did. It's because of what Janet did. They were the leaders that paved the way for those things. They were the ones that made that possible. They made dancers part of what our industry is now. That's why, we should be grateful and thankful for them.
And I just want to run through quickly now. Listeners always get an absolute kick out of hearing from collaborators talk about their favorite MJ stuff. So rapid fire, what is your favorite Michael Jackson short film?
Thriller.
Thriller? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, why Thriller?
Because I was a kid when it came out, and the way it affected me and what it made me think of dance, it changed me forever.
Yeah, love it. Okay, what's your favorite Michael Jackson song?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to do a throwback. I'm into Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. I think that's I like, it's not his first album, but I'm all into Rock With You, like that era. That's like that. It was just like the grooves on that album are sick.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Late 70s MJ, Triumph Off the Wall era is just...
Yes, Off the Wall is like, it's sick. I don't know. All that whole... I love, like, all the albums have something special. I do like, sometimes people don't talk about Heartbreaker, but the beatboxing in Heartbreaker is sick.
Yeah.
I'm like, the breakdown, I taught something like, I'm like when the music goes out and you just hear him beatboxing, I'm like, it's funny because some of the kids that I teach had no idea that he could do that. And they're like, that's some of the sickest beatbox I've ever heard. I was like, sure is. Didn't know that, did you? Didn't know you knew that. But yeah, it's true.
Okay, and favorite Michael Jackson dance routine?
My favorite to do is the breakdown from Smooth.
Yeah.
Because of the complexity. My favorite to teach it's Thriller, because I love to see people. It's weird. It's so many people around the world know it and can do it, even if it's more basic version. It is truly one of the greatest pieces of choreography ever created, because there's not one place in the world you can go that somebody doesn't know it. And that's crazy to me. That's when you know. Performing Smooth and doing the breakdown from Smooth is fun for me. When people go, what would you like to teach? I always will pull towards Thriller, because I also feel like it's such a through line of something that you can teach anyone. You can teach it to them. You can, and they already somewhat know it. Like, it's crazy. Like, when you see it, it's been in movies. People copy it in movies, or they copy moves from it in movies. That's when you know. That's when it's iconic. And there are certain things that you'll see people do, and you go, oh, that's Michael. Oh, that's Michael. Oh, that's Michael. To this day, I still see, and I see big artists do it all the time. I'm like, wow, that looks just like this,
That's great.
But why? Yeah. But Michael had his inspirations too, and so why not? Why not?
Last question, and this is a question we ask every single special guest we get on the show. How do you think Michael Jackson should be remembered?
I think it goes back to, how he made people feel when they came to see him live and they got to experience the music live is something that can never be described. And unfortunately, because he was taken from us too soon, there are generations of people that'll never get to experience that. But I hope that our generation of people can really show people what was so special about him that way. Kind of what you were talking about earlier, about he had this inclusiveness of wanting to show every part of the world on stage, so that every part of the world felt like they were there and everyone was included that way. And I thought that was very important.
I love those thoughts.
I think, like, anytime you see these geniuses, like these musical geniuses, they never stop working. They're always like, and I think also the experiences in their life really guide them. So, the things that he experienced as a child guided him to write the kind of albums he did as an adult, and I think the people he looked up to as a kid also guided him, as far as style and things. It's like I look back and see some videos of him when he was young singing, and I go, where did he get all that soul? Because he's so young, and I was like, wow, But then you get it. You went like later in life, you get it, and that's why he always encouraged us to do our best. He goes, all of the people on this stage are the best, and we're all supposed to be here doing our best, because if we all do our best, just think about it. And that was it. That was it. I knew what Jennifer Batten was doing. I was like, hearing her play live, I was like, what? And because it was so crisp and so clean and so like everything. Greg Fillinganes, it was effortless. He was effortless on that thing. Like I sometimes I didn't even think, I was like, is he playing? Because it's so effortless. It was so amazing. Surrounded by that talent, it adds to your inspiration and maybe what you can achieve, and you just, like I love reminiscing, and I love being able to share stories, because I want people I'm never afraid of, I feel so grateful to all of the people involved, to give me the opportunity to be there for that part of history, in music and live performances. They all gave me that chance. And like Vincent taking a chance on me, for Smooth, changed my life. It gave me the opportunity to be around Michael. So I'm eternally grateful. And what I was able to learn being around him and the others that worked on the video, and seeing how that what's possible. And that's what I try to share when I teach. Don't limit yourself to see the impossible, see what's possible, and then choose to push to the next level. Kind of going back to what I was saying, I work with kids, and it's always encouraging them to, yes, I know things seem this way and that way, but they also can be this way, or that way. And sometimes even just because I work with kids, it brings me out of where maybe I have my funk, and I don't feel like I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I'm stuck at home. Oh, well, now I found some magic teaching Zoom classes to kids online. That's pretty amazing.
It is really amazing.
And seeing their faces and seeing their goofiness and seeing I'm not always, super serious when I teach Zoom classes, a lot of them, I'm the funny teacher, oh, you're so funny. Because, I'm a character. I want them to have fun. I think it's important as kids that having that discovery, that eyes wide open, and knowing that there's this beautiful, amazing world out there that's waiting to be discovered. And your imagination is just going to open your eyes up to all of those wonderful things. I do. I try to do it, and it's can be challenging sometimes, but I think at the end of the day, it's something that's very rewarding.
Absolutely. And everything you're saying to me resonates so much with me as a teacher, because that's the philosophy I have in the classroom. So with your Zoom classes, how can people find them and connect with them, and even find you on social media?
It's my social media. I'm on Instagram. If y'all want to find me on Instagram, it's Cuban, like Cuba, Cuban_Ed. And you'll know it's me because there's a picture of Daffy Duck in a Cuban suit, because I'm a cartoon duck fan. I love Daffy Duck and Donald Duck. I don't know why. I think it's because they're always working so hard. But I think, and they're always, to me, they're the really funny characters that I always could relate to, because I'd always key in up to their angst. I'm on Facebook. I am at my limit, but I have a fan page on Facebook that I do go back and forth with. But I'm in a little red. It's like Eddie Garcia. There's also a Filipino actor. I heard he's amazing. I've never seen any of his films. His name's Eddie Garcia, and sometimes people get us confused. So sometimes I'll get like messages from the Philippines, and I'm like, "Oh no, wrong one. That's the other dude. Sorry." I heard he's amazing though. I think he passed away though. Rest in peace if he did. Oh, I also have a Camp Me Dance, which is camp as in camping, me as in me, M-E, dance. And I run a summer camp, except for this year. We're not doing it this year. But what I do is here in Los Angeles, I started to feel a need. I felt that kids were kind of stuck indoors quite a bit, and I think, unfortunately, because, I think through this pandemic that the world's been going through, I think once we find our way out of this, which I know will happen, I think it's going to be really important for kids to get outdoors and to reconnect. And the mission of my camp, I've done it 2 years in a row, except for this year. We're taking a year off because of safety issues. We want to make sure everything's safe and the kids can enjoy it. We bring the kids up to the mountains. I surround them with, nature. We have like swimming pool. We got like water slides. We got zip lines. We got like, hikes, kayaking, but then we teach dance classes outdoors, and I surround them with people in the industry that are amazing, people that have worked on Mary Poppins Returns, people that worked with Taylor Swift, people that have worked with Jennifer Lopez. Right now, we're trying to we've been keeping it pretty small, so the kids actually have a lot of one-on-one with these teachers. The choreographers and teachers that I bring in, some of them are my teachers, people that I took classes from.
Wow.
Because I also feel it's important to teach history, to teach, like, I think we live in such a fast-paced society now where everybody, we're going to like talk about Instagram and Facebook and all this stuff, that sometimes it's like kids, their minds are going so fast that sometimes it's okay to slow them down. And I think it's important for them to learn where dance came from. So like, I've been really blessed to have some amazing teachers that I took from. They come up and to me, they're my master teachers. These are the ones that I looked up to. Like I said, I have really current people that have made an impact in the dance world. And I'm, again, blessed to have a lot of amazing, beautiful friends that come up and they work with the kids and they inspire the kids and they inspire the kids to find who they are as people. And we feel that strongly in our community, as dancers, that we're one big, huge family and we're one big tribe that takes care of each other. And if we approach things like that, we're better off because we will become successful in whatever way. I mean, success is measured in different forms. I tell kids, yeah, I've danced on a stage for 250,000 people, but I've also danced in front of a small group of people and made people smile. And that's just as important. It's just as you still get that gratitude from it. And you still understand, like, it makes my day when I see that I teach, a 9-year-old and I teach 2 sisters, and it makes my day to see them working they'll send me little video clips of them working on the stuff that we worked on in class. And they'll send it to me to show me that they've been doing their homework. And that makes me so happy. And it gives me so much hope. And a lot of the kids I work with are like that. They're an inspiration to myself to be a better teacher and to push to do things better. I work with a group of kids and we're going to film in the park and we're going to create a show for their families to watch. We're going to do a drive-up, kind of like a drive-up movie kind of night where everybody pulls up in cars and can watch on a screen, and we keep our social distance, but people get to see their kids dance. I think that's an amazing, beautiful thing.
Oh man, so do I. That really warms my heart to see what your legacy has become in terms of giving back and helping kids. So, I mean, I really hope our listeners really support you and rally around you and head over to your social media and really support what you're doing. That's beautiful to hear.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I try to answer. I know sometimes people send me messages and I try to answer them as quickly as possible. And I try to be as open and like I said, I'm all about positivity and putting positive vibes out there, because I think as a world, that's what we need to do. I think sometimes we get caught up in talking at each other instead of with each other, and I think if we see ourselves as a world together, this goes back to what I learned while I was on tour. It's not as big as you think, the world, but it sure is beautiful. And if we work together, it can be an amazing place. And once we get through this time, it's going to really be, I think there's going to be some really beautiful art that comes out of this. I really do. As difficult as it is, and as trying as it's been, it's also taught me a lot. I'm blessed to have an amazing wife who's always an inspiration to me. Every day she has such a positive attitude, and it's always something like I go, wow, she's truly a gift, and she has a Pilates business, and her way of motivating people, because she's been doing Zoom classes online, has inspired me on how to teach when I'm teaching online, because I listen and I watch her and I go, wow, because I'm always a student. How can I get better? And yeah. She truly has been, like, it's been amazing. And we're like everybody else, just trying to get through this thing, and we will, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a great, huge, gigantic party.
At the end. That's exactly what my wife was telling me last night. We were browsing on Apple TV, just the different movies out, and I noticed that it's been a while since any new movies had been added, and I'm like, is this because of COVID, this new movie's not coming out? And she was like, probably, but imagine all of the creative people around the world right now who are feeling stifled and just coming up with these incredible ideas right now, ready to produce when it's over.
It's true. Hollywood's at a standstill. Dancers don't make a lot of money to begin with, but there are no jobs, so there's a lot of people hurting right now. So, I'm pretty fortunate. I do have an opportunity, and I've been working with the studios that I've worked with. There's some incredible studios by my house that have amazing kids, and we found ways to try to get it done. And that is something I think, like, even in the industry, I know they're starting to figure it out. How are we going to move forward? What are we going to do? But how can we do it safely? And I think that's what we're all trying to achieve that right now, because this is new to all of us, I've never lived through a pandemic like this. This is crazy, but people have lived through pandemics, and they have figured it out in the past. And we are very capable of overcoming all of this.
Agreed. And listeners can also find us on social media as well. They can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the MJCast, and of course at themjcast.com, which is our main website repository for all of our podcast episodes and blog posts. And of course, if people want to email us, they can too. We're at themjcast@icloud.com. We love hearing from listeners all around the world. Now, in terms of listening to the MJCast, we do recommend that people subscribe to us as a podcast. We are on YouTube and themjcast.com, but you know what? There's nothing like listening to a podcast on a podcast app. It is just so much better than any other way. So whether it is through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the different places you can get podcasts now, it is a great experience because you can listen to the MJCast live and see the show notes and follow the links and see what we're talking about as we're talking. You can skip through chapters if you want. You can see custom chapter art come up as we're talking about certain things. And the best thing of all is that if you subscribe to us through a podcast app, whenever we deliver a new episode, you get a notification right on your device saying there's an episode ready to go. You can pause where you were up to last time, skip forward and back, and just put it down and replay it later. Lots of different advantages to listening to us as a podcast. So follow the subscribe links at themjcast.com and they'll take you through to different apps or platforms you can subscribe to us on. All of them are pretty great these days. All right. Eddie, I am just honored and humbled that you would choose to come on the MJCast. I get so excited anytime I get to speak to a Michael Jackson collaborator, but you have just taken things to another level. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. And just remember, just everyone out there, keep your heads up. Know that we're all in this together. We're all going to get through this together. Keep art alive and keep that happiness going.
You were telling me before when we were DMing that you're using a gaming headset. I got to know what kind of games you play.
Oh, I'm a Call of Duty guy. I get so angry though. I'll be online and I have to turn my mic off. But I have friends that it's actually it's fun for me because I have friends all over the United States, and we'll get together and we'll play online, and it gives us a chance to chat. I don't take it that serious, It's kind of it's just fun, an outlet. I tried my gaming headset on my computer. I couldn't figure out how to make it work, so I just went with the earbuds that my wife had. She took care of me.
But I know you're a guy with good taste because you're using a Mac. But I've got to ask: are you PS4 or Xbox?
PS4.
Oh, great! And what do you think of the new PS5 design? I
didn't see it. All my friends were talking about it. They're kind of torn in two directions. I'm one of these guys, eventually I always wait. I never get anything when it first comes out because, I like to wait to see. I'm sure it's going to be amazing and do things that I've never seen. And you're going to be like, because I remember when I first saw PS4 and I saw the graphics, I was like, what? Do you know what I mean? So as it's crazy because I remember Atari, yo. You know what I'm saying? I remember Pong. I remember playing Pong, doot, doot, doot. It's like you try to tell kids that and they don't know what you're talking about. I was I had a little joystick and I was move it and it would hit the thing and it'd go across the thing. You tried to hit it back and forth and they're like, that was fun. I was like, yeah.
Well, my first ever console was, I think you guys in the US called them a Sega Genesis. In Australia, we called them the Sega Mega Drive.
When we were on tour, we had that in our bus. I was the only person that played it.
Really? So when you were touring with Michael, you had a Sega on the bus?
Yes, I would always play Sonic the Hedgehog.
Nice.
Yes, and Michael would play that. He'd have one on the side of the stage, and sometimes he would play, before a concert started, it was kind of a calming thing for him and just, get him into a play. But yeah, so it was fun.
Amazing.